Hello everyone. So after my long 4-week hiatus from the Damascus Grind, I returned from holidays and the final class I had to do with the SMGs. After just 3 days, I managed to get Platinum for all 6 of them, and I wanted to make this video to share my thoughts of the experience of getting Platinum for SMGs and to give some help for those of you who are trying to unlock Platinum SMGs in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Just like all of my weapon class guides, there's going to be timestamps in the description below for those of you who just want to skip to certain parts. The SMGs are a class of fully automatic lightweight guns that typically have a high fire rate but low damage per bullet. The SMGs are the most mobile out of all the primary guns and have the best handling stats such as sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed out of all the primaries. For these reasons, SMGs typically specialise in close to mid-range combat, but they aren't very viable in long-range combat because of their significant damage drop-off. The SMGs also have the best hipfire spread out of all the primaries, and you can even further tighten the hipfire spread with certain attachments to make hipfire very accurate. For many people, SMGs would be the preferable choice for close range combat instead of shotguns, because although SMGs lack the instant time to kill that shotguns have, since SMGs are fully automatic, they're more consistent and reliable than shotguns, because if you miss one shot with a shotgun in a close range gunfight, you're pretty much dead. Whereas with SMGs, you can miss a bullet or two and still win a gunfight. Also, since SMGs fire a single projectile instead of multiple pellets that spread out, you can stretch the ranges out a lot more with SMGs than you can with shotguns. As for each particular SMG, the AUG is a 9mm SMG that is the least mobile and has the worst ADS out of all the SMGs, but in exchange it has the best range out of all the SMGs you have to do for Damascus. It has a base ammo capacity of 25 rounds, which is the worst in the SMG category, and has a fairly average fire rate for SMGs. The P90 fires high velocity 5.7 times 28mm ammo, making it have the highest bullet velocity out of the SMGs and therefore is the most accurate SMG you have to do for Damascus. The P90 is one of the faster firing SMGs, having the second highest fire rate out of the SMGs, and therefore it's a very forgiving gun. It's got a fairly standard ADS speed, but its reload time is tied with the MP5 for being the worst out of the SMGs. However, it's got the second largest base ammo capacity with a 50 round mag. The MP5 is a 9mm SMG which is very commonly used and is easily one of the best guns in Modern Warfare multiplayer due to it being a very good all-round gun. It's the most mobile out of the SMGs and it's got a fairly average ADS speed. Its base ammo capacity is 30 rounds, which is fairly standard for SMGs, however, as previously mentioned, it's tied for having the slowest reload time. The Uzi is a 9mm SMG with the slowest fire rate out of all the SMGs, so it's not nearly as forgiving as the other SMGs. That being said, it has the fastest ADS out of all the SMGs you have to do for Damascus. It has a base ammo capacity of 32 bullets, which is pretty standard for SMGs, and it's also got a pretty standard reload time. Due to the open bolt design that the Uzi has in real life, the Uzi is the only SMG that has an open bolt delay, which means that there will be a bit of delay from when you pull the trigger to when the gun actually fires. The PB19 Bison is a 9mm SMG with the second slowest fire rate and the second slowest ADS speed out of all the SMGs. Although it's got the second fastest reload speed out of the SMGs, not that you'll need to reload very often though, because the Bison has a base ammo capacity of 64 rounds, which is the highest base ammo capacity of any gun in the game that's not an LMG. Finally, the MP7 is another upper tier weapon in Modern Warfare due to its versatility. It's got the highest fire rate out of all the SMGs and it fires 4.6 times 30mm ammunition. Speaking of ammunition, it's got a base ammo capacity of 40 rounds, which sounds like a decent amount, but due to the high fire rate that this thing has, you'll burn through those very quickly. The MP7 also has the fastest reload speed out of the SMGs and has the tightest hipfire spread as well. Do keep in mind that the Striker 45, the Fennec, the ISO and the CX9 are all not necessary to gold in order to get Platinum for SMGs, as they are all DLC weapons. As for the best order to do SMGs, I'd recommend getting the worst out of the way and starting with the AUG, then move on to the Bison, then the Uzi, then the P90, then the MP7, and finally finish off with the MP5. The loadout you're going to want to run while going for Platinum SMGs is for your primary, use the SMG you're on obviously. For your secondary, if you haven't unlocked Platinum for launchers yet, run a launcher to passively shoot down kill streaks, but if you've already Platinum launchers, your secondary really doesn't matter. You won't be needing a knife to switch to so you can run faster because the SMGs already have a great movement speed, so I just use a deagle to fall back on if you run out of ammo in a gunfight. For perks, for perk 1, use Cold Blooded so you never have to worry about enemy killstreaks shooting at you. For perk 2, run Ghost so you won't come up on UAVs and personal radars. And for perk 3, run Battle Hardened so you're not as impacted by stuns and flashes as much. Tune Up also works really well so you can get dead silence quicker, which you should be using as your field upgrade. For tacticals, definitely use Stim so you can replenish your health whenever you want, and for your lethal, this doesn't really matter, but I use the Semtex. However, if you're doing the mounted and longshot kills, it wouldn't be a bad idea to use a proximity mine or claymore to put on the areas that are out of your sight where enemies try to flank you. As for the best attachments for SMGs, this really depends on your playstyle. It comes down to whether you're a hipfire or an ADS player. The difference between the two isn't huge, but it's definitely noticeable. Hip firing is good, especially on PC, because your FOV doesn't zoom in like when it does when you ADS, so more information is available to you while you shoot, and this makes it easier to track your target for some people. Whereas with ADS, although as mentioned your FOV zooms in, you're more accurate than you are when hip firing, because when you ADS, your bullet goes directly where you're aiming, but with hip firing, it only goes within the general area of your crosshair. For this reason, a lot of people prefer to ADS because the shots are more consistent, and particularly when you stretch the ranges out even just by a few meters, ADS is more reliable. So there's pros and cons to each playstyle, and of course you can do a bit of both, but for those of you who just purely play one playstyle, if you're a hipfire player, you're obviously going to want to maximize tightening hipfire spread as well as sprint to fire speed so you can quickly start shooting when you see an enemy. So be sure to put on the 5mm laser, Merc foregrip, no stock or collapsible stock, stipple grip tape and another attachment you want. Personally, I like to use either the monolithic suppressor or an extended mag. However, if you're an ADS player, you're going to want to maximize ADS speed so you can snap onto your target as fast as possible, as well as recoil control or recoil stabilization depending on the SMG you're using. So use the attack laser, commando foregrip, stippled grip tape, no stock if you can handle the little bit of recoil you get with it, and for your last attachment, all of these are going to slow down your ADS speed by a bit, but they're still worth using. Use an extended barrel if you're struggling with recoil and want a bit more control, or use an extended mag if you feel like you're running out of bullets too quickly. Also, one other attachment combination you should use is for when you're going for headshots, long shots or mounted kills. You're not going to be using this build nearly as much as the previous builds I mentioned, but when you're going for these camo challenges you should be using it, and you're going to want to maximize damage range, bullet velocity and recoil control. So put on the monolithic suppressor, the longest barrel, commando foregrip, rubberized grip tape and an optic of your choice. I'll throw up screenshots with the best attachments for each playstyle for each SMG now. I'd recommend saving these different attachment combinations as custom mods so you'll be able to quickly switch between builds and you'll be able to keep any reticle or camos that you've put on it that you can't change in game otherwise. The max level of SMGs is generally in the high 50s, which is pretty average for a primary weapon. Also, since SMGs are very good in Modern Warfare and you'll be getting a lot of kills with them, for the majority of the time you shouldn't really be using your double weapon XP tokens on SMGs because they'll already be leveling up pretty quickly. The only reason I think it would be necessary to use a double weapon XP token is if you really don't like the SMG you're on and you just want to do it as fast as possible, and the other reason is if SMGs are your last class and you don't have to save your double weapon XP tokens for the other higher level classes. You should be playing in hardcore 100% of the time while going for Platinum SMGs because although it's not as fun since you get killed so quickly, it's definitely better for getting more kills per match. And also, while I'm scripting this video, Shoot the Ship is out and you should also be playing this 100% of the time to get the most kills, because Shoot House and Shipment are the two smallest maps in the game. Moving on to the camo challenges, the first camo challenge you have to do is spray paint, and this is getting 500 kills. As usual, you're not going to have to focus on this camo challenge at all, and you'll be doing it passively while focusing on the other camo challenges. Next is Woodland, and this is getting 100 headshot kills, and you'll likely complete this passively as well, because you get a lot of headshot kills without realizing it. But if by the end you've completed all the other camo challenges and you have to focus on this, equip the build I mentioned earlier for headshots, and go in the middle of the head glitch and hardcore shoe house, and the enemy's head and a little bit of their chest will show up, so you get a headshot kill the majority of the time. Digital is getting 110 crouching kills, and for this I'd recommend trying to get it out of the way as soon as possible because in my opinion it interferes with your playstyle the most. Try not to slide because the counting for slide kills as crouching kills is very inconsistent. Instead, try crouching when you turn a corner where you know enemies will be, or if you're on shipment, just duck walk everywhere. Dragon is getting 100 hipfire kills, and I completed this passively and so did a lot of you, but for those of you who hipfire very rarely and instead prefer to ADS, equip the hipfire build I showed you earlier and you'll easily get hipfire kills, especially if you're in hardcore like you should be. For Splinter and Topo, this is getting 50 longshot kills and 50 mounted kills respectively. The reason I put these two together is because you should be doing them at the same time. For this, equip the build for range I showed earlier and mount up on the head glitch and shoe house and just shoot the enemies that pop up. However, if people aren't popping up on it, equip tune-up as your third perk and equip deployable cover as your field upgrade, and plonk down your cover here and just wait for enemies to come, and it will count as a mounted and a long shot kill. Tiger is getting 250 kills with all attachments, and although for some reason this is the highest amount of kills you need to get for Tiger out of all the weapon classes, this is still an extremely easy camo challenge to do because the vast majority of the time you'll have all 5 attachments on your gun, so you don't need to focus on this camo challenge. Stripes is getting 40 kills shortly after reloading, and for this, put on the sleight of hand weapon perk so you can reload quicker, and fire a shot every time you spawn in, and before you turn a corner where you know enemies will be, quickly reload. You can also mix this with the long shot and mounted kills like I did, and every time after you kill an enemy on the head glitch, quickly get a reload in. Reptile is getting 75 kills with no attachments, and the SMGs are still very good without attachments, especially in hardcore, so you should be able to get this done in about 2 games. And finally, Skulls is killing 3 enemies in a single life 25 times, and for this, pay attention to the lower text that appears after each kill you get, telling you how much of a kill streak you're on. When you're on your second kill, play a bit safer and a bit campier than usual to ensure you get that final third kill. And do keep in mind that this challenge does stack, so if you get 6 kills, it will count as 2 towards this challenge. So if you've been paying attention to each of the weapon classes I've made videos on, you'll have figured that with unlocking Platinum for SMGs, I've finally done it, I've finally got Damascus. I don't want to go into too much detail now because I plan on making separate videos about Damascus, but just know, I've gotten it at last, baby! As for my personal thoughts on the experience of getting Platinum for SMGs, they were a very fun class to end on. I think SMGs, particularly on the smaller maps like Shoehouse and Shipman, are probably the best all-round weapon class for 6v6 multiplayer. They're just so competitive and close to mid-range, and in Shoot the Ship there's rarely any long-range gunfights, so they're really good all-round. I saved the SMGs for last for this reason, but I forgot how much I'd used the SMGs previously in Warzone. I had the P90, the Uzi, the MP7 and the MP5 all fully leveled up, and the Bison was nearly max level. The AUG was the only SMG that I had to level up a decent amount, and it made for a very stress-free experience, because I could just immediately focus on the camo challenges, some of which I already had fully done. Although I played hardcore pretty much 100% of the time while going for SMGs in order to get the most kills as possible, I wish I played a bit more in core, because in hardcore everything is sort of equalized to the point where it's just the same. But in core is really where the SMGs shine, and I've played a lot of core matches since after I've platinumed SMGs, and I've had a ton of fun using them. Another great thing about doing the SMGs was that for the first time since I started going for Damascus using the launchers, I had all of the weapon class guide videos done, so I didn't have anything in the back of my mind where I'd feel a bit guilty playing Modern Warfare when I could be catching up with videos. I didn't have any of that, and I could just 100% focus on going for Damascus, and it was a great feeling. And it was because of this that I completed the SMGs in just 3 days, which is by far the shortest time it's ever taken me to platinum a class. As for my opinion on each SMG, I started out with the AUG and I wasn't a huge fan of this gun. It's got the movement speed and the ADS speed of an AR, but range of an SMG. I also didn't like how small the default mag size was, paired with how slow the reload speed was, so I was nearly always using an extended mag as well as sleight of hand on this thing. It was also around this time that I was experimenting with the affected ADS FOV, and that made the enemies appear much smaller than usual when I aimed, and the iron sights on this gun were not very helpful here either. The size of the iron sights often got in the way of the person I was aiming at, and while on another day this wouldn't have been a problem, I remember struggling a lot with hitting my shots while getting used to the affected FOV. So overall, didn't really love this gun. Next up was the PV19 Bison, and everyone always says that the Bison's super underrated, and it was pretty decent. Having 64 rounds by default is amazing to have with an SMG, because it means I don't have to run an extended mag or sleight of hand, so I had those extra attachment slots to make this gun have a really snappy ADS, which helped a lot in gunfights. Although I think the fire rate is really holding the Bison back. It's got the second slowest fire rate out of the SMGs, which make it a bit unforgiving, and if I had just a slightly faster fire rate, I think this could easily be an upper tier SMG. Then I moved on to the Uzi, and this gun was a very solid and consistent SMG. The fire rate's fairly slow, but the recoil control and accuracy more than make up for it. And although the carbine pro barrel is a bit of a pain in the arse to unlock, with it, the one-shot damage range on hardcore felt a lot more consistent than the previous SMGs I'd used. I'm also happy to say that the open bolt delay wasn't nearly as noticeable and as much of a problem as it was on the LMGs, and honestly I forgot there even was an open bolt delay with the Uzi. The next gun I used was the P90, and I remember I used to use this gun a lot with my Kar 98K at the start of the year, and I remember really enjoying it, and over 6 months later it's still as fun as ever. It was perfect for running and gunning, with its very fast fire rate and its great handling stats. Similar to the Bison, having 50 rounds by default freed up an extra attachment slot, which is always nice. It was also super easy to do the long shot and mounted kills with because of its low amount of recoil. Getting gold for the P90 reinvigorated my love for it, and I've even started using it in Warzone recently, and I've actually been finding a lot of success with it and enjoying it a lot. After the P90 I moved on to the MP7, and this gun has always been a personal favourite of mine in Warzone, and if you watch the channel a lot you'll have even noticed that I used it in one of my wins. Its rapid fire rate paired with literal zero recoil make it an absolute laser beam, and since I've used it so much in Warzone I had like half of the camo challenges already fully done, and it took me less than an hour to gold. What I absolutely love about this gun is its versatility. You can build it to have the best hipfire spread in the game, to have a very snappy ADS, or even make it a decent sniper support. I'd go as far as to say that the MP7 is easily the most versatile weapon in the entire game of Modern Warfare. There's just so many ways you can build it and it will always be amazing. And then finally, the very last gun I had to gold for Damascus, it only felt right to bring it back full circle to one of the guns that made up my very first loadout in Warzone, the one and only MP5. I even purchased my very first COD bundle with the COD points I've saved up with over the past few months so I could get the white tracer version of this gun, and they looked sick to use, especially since I've never shot a gun with tracer rounds before in COD. Another gun that I've consistently been using in Warzone, it's just always been amazing. In Modern Warfare, it's hands down the best all-round gun for 6v6 core multiplayer. Although one complaint I have about this gun is the long shot and mounted kills were horrible to do. Even when this thing is stacked out with recoil control attachments and mounted, if you put an optic with a tiny bit of zoom, the recoil just goes abysmal. And if I hadn't have been in such good spirits because I was on the last gun I had to do for Damascus, then I would have raged a lot while doing these long shots. But overall, this is one of my very favourite guns in the game, and I'm so glad that I've finally gotten gold for it. If I were to rank the SMGs in order from worst to best, it would actually go in the exact order I did them. AUG at the bottom, then the Bison, then the Uzi, then the P90, MP7, and on top it's the undisputed king, the MP5. So yeah, SMGs have been platinumed. I'm very glad that I had the self-control to keep the SMGs for last, because due to how good they are, they're one of the most fun classes to do, and an amazing class to finish on. And with that, I've finally gotten Damascus. So thank you so much for watching this video. Obviously, now that I've gotten platinum for SMGs, that finally wraps it up for all the platinum weapon class guides. I still have plenty more ideas for videos though, most of them about Damascus in some way or another. This is the last video I post on my summer holidays because I'm coming back to school this Thursday, so you may notice a bit of a slowdown in the uploads, but this year is going to be a bit of a DOS, so I'm hoping I can still make YouTube videos somewhat consistently throughout it, but that remains to be seen. Anyway, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and if you've platinumed or are currently trying to platinum SMGs, I'd be interested to hear what you think about them in the comments below. Again, thank you so much for watching this video, and take care of yourselves.